Okay. I think it's working now. Let's try not to break stuff. Restream is really weird. And the fact that a computer crash causes the event to be set as passed or stopped or finished, that's sounds broken to me. Anyway, so yeah, we do have a new installer for sale, which is just a shell script. You can look at what it does. It's in GitHub. You can look at what it does. Should work on Linux, Mac OS, and Windows under WSL. And it also gives you the ability to run the mainline version of Sail, so you can install whatever is in the main branch on GitHub before it's even released. So with the new installer, unlike Homebrew and PyPy, you can get access to pre-releases as well as the mainline branch, which is really cool if you want to test some of the new features before everyone else. So that's the installer. Let's see what else we have. Installer, skip hooks, no verify. This is if you want to not run the pre-deploy hooks in case you're aware of any broken stuff that you might be deploying, but you still want to deploy it. Blueprints fully client-side, provision destroy client-side, sizes regis client-side, domains fully client-side as well. And this change will actually give you the ability to use subdomains without their parent domains as well, which I know is one of the features that has been asked for by some Sail users, where you maybe have a larger site running on one server and then would like to have just a separate install for a subdomain of that large site, like maybe a store.whatever.com. And you want to run it on a subdomain, then in previous versions you wouldn't be able to do that because it would force you to add the parent domain first before adding the subdomain. But since moving this to client side, it does now support, don't want to say like abandoned subdomains or like orphan subdomains, but it does support subdomains, and then it can also add a subdomain for the subdomain, so like a third or fourth level subdomain, which will also work with HTTPS as well. So that's about it. Let's dive into environments and namespaces and see what that's all about. So let me make this a little larger so you all can see. Let's make a new directory called saildemo.com. And let's run sail init. I'm not sure if I'm running on a local server, but let me just make sure that I am. Okay, so sail init here should take a few minutes. I timed the difference between this and the version that was running on the API side, and this is like a couple minutes faster, maybe 1 minute faster. Usually, it really depends on like the status of DigitalOcean, how fast they're provisioning the droplets, because that's where most of the time is going. But also Cloud Init, installing and downloading and installing all that software can also take some time. But hopefully they have local mirrors for Ubuntu packages, so those should be a little quicker than pulling the Docker image that we had on Docker Hub. So this is a little quicker. And like nothing changed about this part. If you've used Sail before, it's pretty much exactly the same. And let's wait for that to complete. But basically, I want to dive into what namespaces are and what environments are. So essentially, an environment is a collection of cloud resources. And by collection of cloud resources right now, I mean it's just one server, like if you're using the default sale setup, it's a single server that's going to be your environment. So two different environments would just mean two different servers. In more complex scenarios, you would have environments consisting of more than just a server, which will contain all of your stuff, but maybe we'll split it up into a couple of web servers, load balancer, and a database server. That would be a self-contained environment where you can run a WordPress application. So that's an environment. And every time you run sale init, by default, you're creating a new environment. However, with namespaces, a namespace allows you to deploy a WordPress application, side by side together with another WordPress application in the same environment. It'll just have a different directory name, and it'll just have a different database username and a database name. So that's namespacing essentially. They do share a lot of the resources in that same environment. So it is the same database server that it's running. This is not provisioning, the namespace is not provisioning a separate MySQL server for the new WordPress install. It's using the same MySQL server or MariaDB server that is provisioned in the environment, is just creating a namespaced database on that server. So if you are using Redis, for example, same there. The Redis, if you have 500 megs of memory dedicated to your WordPress application, provisioning a second application will just namespace the keys used by Redis. So you're still using the same memory space when using two applications. You're using the same PHP FPM pools as well. So if you're running 10 WordPress applications just on 10 different namespaces in the same environment, there's going to be a single PHP FPM pool that's backing all of those environments. So if you're getting a lot of traffic on one of the sites that's causing work for your PHP FPM workers, the other sites on different namespaces might struggle. So there's no isolation of different namespaces in the same environment. So if you are looking for isolation, if you want to run maybe a staging server where you don't want to risk of running a load test on your staging side and having it affect your production side, if that's what you want to do, you should really look into running a separate environment and not a namespace. And namespaces are good when you're running like maybe smaller, as I said, projects as part of maybe a larger site that you're running, like a subdomain or a different domain. It doesn't really matter. So let's see here. Here's my sale init. So this is my main, this is my environment, and this is my main or like default project. And if you run sale info, you'll see that the namespace here is the default. So I do have a host name. This is provided by the sale API, and I do have an application ID. So these are unique per sale project. And this is the IP of the droplet that has been provisioned for as part of my environment. And so I have the login here. Let me try and log in. So this is the password. So this is my main, this is the first site that I created. And let's say I'm gonna open a new window probably, so I can have these side by side. Let's say I want to provision or install a secondary WordPress application under, say, testing.saledemo. Was it .com? Yes. Or maybe let's call it, I don't know, staging.saledemo.com. So I'll create the directory. Now here, before I run sale init, like if I run sale init like this, it will just spin up a new environment for me. It'll just spin up a new server and provision another WordPress application on that new server. So if I want to provision an application into an existing environment, I want to pass in an environment flag, or option rather, and tell it which environment I'd like to provision this new website in. So I'll pass in work sale demo.com. So this is the path to this first environment. And since I am provisioning into an existing environment, the default namespace is default. So in here, I'll want to use a different namespace. I'll say namespace staging. So this will basically copy like my SSH keys and things like that from this existing environment. It will still claim a different application ID. So they are treated as two completely separate WordPress installs. They're not related other than running in the same environment. So it'll create the databases, it will generate the Nginx configs, but there it is. I have another URL. So I log in here. And this is going to be a bit confusing until I add domains, but bear with me for a sec. I log in here, and this is my secondary install. So now I have two. They look identical, but they are two separate installs. Let me actually go and say a primary install and save. And let's go here and say secondary or staging install and save. So now this should be a little more apparent which one is the staging install and which one is the primary. If you log into the server through SSH, let's say a sale SSH as root, it is the same server. It is exactly the same server that's running both environments. So if you look at var www, you will see that there is the same public direct, like the profiles, public, releases, and uploads. These are the four directories, well, 3 directories and a symbolic link that make up a WordPress install. And then anything that is outside of the default namespace is just in a separate directory. So we have staging here. We can go ahead and say another staging.saledemo.com and sale init environment. And I can also, in the environment, I can pass, I don't need to pass the default namespace as the environment. I can pass any one of the environments because they're pretty much the same. The same SSH keys are used to access the environment. So I can pass an existing environment, and doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be in the default namespace. But I will pass the default saledemo.com and then namespace another dash staging. And it will provision a third. WordPress instance on the same server, and I can have as many as I want, until I run out of like disk space and memory and whatever. But at that point, like you can just scale up if you want to run 20 WordPress instances on a single DigitalOcean server. You can do it. Depends on what kind of traffic you're expecting, and depends on what kind of installation you're running. If you're running high traffic WooCommerce stores, then probably not a great idea to run 20 WordPress instances on a $5 server. You would probably want a little more than that. But if you're running fairly simple things, which maybe are very, very cacheable and which are simple, don't run too many complex plugins, then why not? You can run 20 or 30 WordPress installs. So we have a third staging site here. So if I go to staging and sale SSH root and look at the var www directory, you will see that we have another staging directory here. It's probably not very easy to see because of the colors. But basically each namespace contains these profiles, releases, uploads, directories, and then a symlink to whatever is currently deployed. And then with these namespace sites, they do have their own .sale directory and their own sale config. It does inherit some of the things from the previous environment, but it no longer relies on that environment to even be there. Like this is now a self-contained environment which will work. So deploying backups, if you run sail backup, it'll work, but it will only backup this particular namespace. It doesn't know about the existence of other sites on the same server. It just knows about its own namespace. So if you ask it to backup or restore or deploy or download, that is the namespace that's going to be used. If you're running a profiler, I think it's this site. So sail profile and the URL. This is the site that is going to be profiled, and the profiles are going to be stored in that namespace directory. So that's namespaces. And when you do sail destroy, right? I do have my main or my default namespace here in saildemo.com and sail. I think it was info. I do have my staging namespace here in two separate terminal windows. But if I run sail destroy here, this will only destroy the namespace. So it will delete my application data from the production server. It will delete my database servers, which are, by the way, also just prefix. It's like WordPress underscore sail SSH root MySQL show databases. So it's WordPress underscore and then the namespace name. So WordPress default, WordPress staging, WordPress another staging. These are the databases. So if I sail destroy in this directory, it will destroy the database called WordPress staging and the user called WordPress staging, and then the Nginx config for the staging side without affecting any of the other namespaces. But if you destroy the default namespace, it is like the destroy command is namespace aware. So if it finds other namespaces on the same machine, it's going to warn you that, hey, there are other namespace, other sites running on this server. So, you know, either destroy them first or force like a complete destroy of the entire environment with sail destroy -- environment, which will just destroy all the namespaces in that environment without prejudice or with prejudice. So that's destroyed. Let's look at some of the domains now. I do have these temporary host names which have been given to me by the sail CLI, but obviously you would want to sail domain add, say saildemo.com and www.saildemo.com for my main site for the default namespace. I already have these set up to point to the DigitalOcean name servers, and I already have some existing records from previous tests with this domain, so it's probably going to delete those records and add new DNS records for this domain. So sail.demo.com, this is my droplet IP. So if I dig a sail.demo.com, it will give me 0.7.245, 0.7.245. So this sail.demo.com and www.sail.demo.com are now pointing to the IP address, and I can access them. I can go www.saildemo.com. It is HTTP since I haven't requested a certificate yet, but it does point to the primary install. What I can do is I can sail domain, but it's not primary, by the way. So if I do, you know, go to WP admin or something, it is going to take me to the primary domain, which is this random looking host name. So what I can do is sail domain. Sail domain add. I already ran that. Sail domain. It's make HTTPS. I'll agree to the Let's Encrypt terms, and now it's going to not request certificates for me, but I can run it with the debug flag and see what's going on. It's probably just too early. Like Let's Encrypt is probably trying a Too many certificates already issued for this exact set of domains in the last 168 hours. They do have some rate limiting, and when you are testing stuff, they do recommend testing against staging servers. But I think what we can do is we can try and trick it into thinking that this is actually something different. So www.saildemo.com, and say we want to also add domain add primary.saildemo.com. And then we are going to make HTTPS saildemo.com, www.saildemo.com, and also primary.saildemo.com. Let's see if that tricks Let's Encrypt into giving us a new certificate. It should work, I think. Okay, it's working. The yellow stuff is the debug, is because I passed the -d flag, but usually you don't have all this noise. So now I have an SSL certificate for these 3 host names. What I'll want to do next is I will want to sail domain make primary, make dash primary, and I'll say saildemo.com. I want that to be my primary domain name, and it's going to run some search and replace in the database, and it's going to set my primary domain. So now if I do sail domain list, I'll see that saildemo.com is my primary domain. If I go to my primary domain, I will end up on my primary install. It did log me out because the cookies were set for the random host name and not for saildemo.com, but this is my primary install. So now let me open the second window here on our staging side, and let me sail domain list. Since this is a separate project, this also has a separate list of domains. So I can add sail domain add staging.saildemo.com to this site, and it will create a DNS record, and it will create an nginx config for my staging saildemo.com, and I can also hopefully make HTTPS staging sail. This doesn't look visible. Okay, this is better. I can request an SSL certificate for staging.saildemo.com. That should probably work. Okay. SSL certificates install. Don't forget to sail domain make primary. So sail domain make primary staging.saildemo.com. And this site should now, this site, or rather this site, staging.saildemo.com, is now the primary staging install. As I said in the past, you did not have the ability to have a subdomain on its own, but now with this new release, and with domains being fully client-side, you do have full control over which domains and which parent domains and which subdomains go where. So yeah, that's domains. What else did I want to show? Sail diff, pre-deploy. I mean, pre-deploy is pretty self-explanatory if you used Git hooks. But yeah, I don't know. That's about it. If you guys have any questions, or if you do decide to give it a go and bump into any issues with any of the new stuff, or any of the old stuff as well, especially if you're looking to migrate an existing Sail project to the latest version, you should really hop on our Slack channel. It's in Sail.io documentation getting help. There's a link to our Slack community, and there's like a help channel where you can just ask for help with your install, and we're super happy to assist in migrating or just introducing to Sail in general, what Sail is and what it is not, how to use Sail, good use cases, good workflows. There are plenty of workflows around deploying with GitHub, deploying with Circle CI, running unit tests on Travis, and all of those. Like all of those things are possible with Sail CLI. It's just a matter of setting things up correctly, and we'll be happy to help you out if you are struggling. So yeah, if you are new to Sail, it's really easy to get started. As I've shown, we do have a new install script, which is just a command that you run on Linux, Mac OS, Windows through WSL. It is a fairly simple Python application. It has some dependencies, but not too much. But it does take a few seconds to install. And then yeah, you just run Sail in it. Well, you do have to get a DigitalOcean account, but you just run Sail in it and take it from there. Give it a go. Let us know what you think. You can send us feedback either through Slack. You can open an issue or a PR, hopefully in the GitHub repository. And yeah, super excited about this release. And we do have some cool and exciting stuff planned for some of the next releases as well. So thanks for tuning in. I'm gonna leave you guys with some Epidemic sounds, and see you later. Let's go for some funk.